Only extremely talented actors can carry almost entire movies by themselves, and sometimes it's just really entertaining. Today's list is all about movies where actors acted alone for most of the runtime. Some of these actors gave truly amazing performances that deserved more recognition. It might be hard to be alone on screen for so long, but all these actors make it look so easy. Who made the list? Well, let's get into it right now. Will Smith has always had such a magnetic charm about him. After shooting to stardom thanks to The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he successfully transitioned into the movie business, where for a time he was basically king of the box office. Sometimes his movies didn't necessarily get a lot of critical acclaim, but they mostly always opened at #1 at the box office. People definitely went to the movies to see him. With all that said, of course Will Smith could carry an entire movie by himself, and that's exactly what happened in I Am Legend, the vampire thriller that saw Will Smith alone for a majority of the movie. And you know what? He made it look easy. Even though his life was tragic and the circumstances are bleak, the movie is actually a blast to watch thanks to Will Smith's pure charisma. Will Smith hasn't necessarily had the best luck at the box office in recent years compared to his peak 2000 years, but maybe the actor should do more movies like I Am Legend that rely solely on his performance. On the other hand, maybe there's such thing as too much of a good thing, because he did do Gemini Man, and we all know how that went. Tom Hanks seems like he will always be America's sweetheart. There's just something so calming and relaxing about watching Tom Hanks perform that I almost think it has to be some type of witchcraft. I mean, you're telling me I'm completely alright with watching Tom Hanks alone for almost a full movie in Castaway and I don't get bored one time? That sounds like some type of trick, doesn't it? I guess there are just some people who can be that likable. And Castaway is such a great movie. It tells the story of a FedEx employee who gets stranded on an island after a plane crash and his attempts to escape. He's joined, of course, by his best friend in the whole world, which is the volleyball Wilson, and the two have quite a harrowing experience on that island. I think it stands as one of Hanks' best performances ever, and that's really saying something. But obviously I'm not the only one who thinks this was a great performance, as it earned Hanks an Oscar nomination for Best Actor. Hey, and it's totally deserved too. I still wince whenever I think about his tooth removal scene, and my heart breaks every time I think about Hanks yelling at Wilson as the inanimate object floats away in the ocean. Why do I care so much? A lot of actors on this list could be considered heavy hitters. Like, a lot of them are A-list stars who you would expect could carry almost an entire movie by themselves. So that's why 2016's The Jungle Book is so fascinating. Directed by Jon Favreau, it's all CGI, except for the lead character Mowgli, portrayed by Neil Sethi. He's basically an unknown, and then is asked to be front and center for the whole movie, hopping around green screens like it was a real jungle, and asked to interact with animals that aren't really there. That would be difficult for any actor to do, but amazingly, the young kid pulls it off. Jon Favreau does such a great job making this world come alive, and the CGI is actually really convincing, which is why it's so easy to forget that it's really just a small boy on screen acting alone for the entire thing. This might not be a movie your mind immediately jumped to, but the movie and Sethi's performance definitely deserves more recognition. If you think it's so easy, go pull out a broomstick, attach a tennis ball to it, and pretend it's your best friend, and tell me how authentic that feels. I think Moon is perhaps the most underrated movie on this list, but it's also one of the best sci-fi movies of the 2000s. It was directed by Duncan Jones and stars Sam Rockwell as an astronaut who uncovers a massive secret near the end of his 3-year solitary assignment on the moon. For a lot of the movie, it's just Sam Rockwell being Sam Rockwell, which is always a treat. But then the real twist comes. It turns out he's actually a clone with fake memories who every few years gets replaced by another version of himself. It's trippy and tragic, but the real treat is seeing Sam Rockwell meet another clone, and then it's basically two Sam Rockwells on screen for the rest of the movie, each with their own distinct personalities, but also key similarities. It's an amazing performance, and even though there's two characters in this movie, Moon still counts because it's just Sam Rockwell acting against himself. Now that's impressive. If you haven't seen Moon, please do yourself a favor and check it out. I'm gonna be honest with you. Out of everyone on this list, I'm most surprised James Franco is included on here. Yeah, James Franco can be an interesting actor with a lot of fun characters, but do you consider him on the same level as Tom Hanks, Will Smith, and Sam Rockwell? not so much. But the harrowing drama 127 Hours proved that, yeah, James Franco definitely does have the acting chops with the right role. The Danny Boyle-directed drama shows why you should always leave a note, kids. It tells the true story of how Aaron Ralston got pinned by a boulder while hiking, and after 7,620 minutes, or, 127 hours, amputated his own arm to escape. Although there are a few other actors in it, for a majority of the film it's just James Franco trapped underneath the rock trying desperately to escape and slowly succumbing to dehydration and vivid hallucinations. It's probably Franco's best performance ever, and somehow he's able to make a movie about a guy cutting off his own arm in graphic detail into one of the most inspirational movies of that year. Ryan Reynolds is mostly known for his comedic performances, and his delivery style is so unique and fast-paced that if you had to make a comedy starring just him, that would be easy. Like, I have no doubt if there was a whole movie that just had Ryan Reynolds sitting on a stool throwing insults at an unseen Hugh Jackman, that wouldn't be a problem. He could do that in his sleep. But let's not forget he does have the dramatic chops when the situation calls for it. So that's why I want to talk about Buried, a claustrophobic thriller that's just Ryan Reynolds in a box for a whole movie. It's about an American civilian who's kidnapped in Iraq and buried alive with only a lighter and a BlackBerry to help him. A lot of these other movies on this list at least have the characters being able to move around large locations and do stuff. You don't get that with Buried. This is purely Ryan Reynolds in a confined space, struggling to survive and talking on a phone for its entirety. The stakes are incredibly high here, and it's gripping from start to finish. Tom Hardy stars in Locke, and like Buried, it's just the actor in a confined space for the whole movie, talking on the phone with different people. Although the stakes aren't as life and death as Buried, it's still incredibly tense because there's just so much going on. It's about a dedicated family man who, on the verge of a massive business deal, gets a call that his mistress is going into labor with his child. The whole movie is Locke's car ride to the hospital and seeing him deal with his co-workers and coaching them through complications with work and comforting his mistress who's scared about having the baby. It's truly a tour de force acting performance from Tom Hardy as you watch his entire life fall apart over the course of the car ride.
It's okay, don't worry about it, it's fine.
What are you capable of believing in? That's the idea behind Ang Lee's Life of Pi, a visual epic that for most of the movie sees our lead character Pi alone on a lifeboat with a tiger named Richard Parker of all things after a major shipwreck. This is a strange movie, no doubt about it, but it's also incredibly powerful. We take a journey right along with Pi as he witnesses these fantastical things that may or may not be actually happening, and it's impossible to not be swept up in the spectacle of it all. Yes, he's not entirely alone at the beginning and end of the film, but the true heart of this movie happens when it's just Pi by himself. It's a really strong performance by Suraj Sharma, and it definitely could not have been easy filming this type of project. You may or may not know this, but space is kind of a big empty place. There's not too many people around. So if you get trapped up there by yourself, yeah, you might be hard-pressed to find someone to help out. That's basically the premise of Gravity, which stars Sandra Bullock and George Clooney as two astronauts who go through the worst possible situation if you were in space. Although he's in it for a little bit, George Clooney doesn't stick around for too long, leaving a majority of the film just Sandra Bullock struggling to survive. Bullock does a great job, and her fight to get back to Earth is gripping from start to finish. It definitely makes me never want to go to space. Sorry, it ain't happening. I'll keep my feet on the ground, thank you very much. I've noticed a trend for a lot of these one-person movies is that the single actor is usually placed in a life or death situation and has to fight to survive. It's usually an ultimate man versus nature type of scenario for a lot of these, and that's especially true for this last one. All Is Lost is a movie with an exceptionally bleak title, starring Robert Redford as a man struggling against the elements as his ship breaks down in the middle of the Indian Ocean. The truly special thing about this film is how minimal it actually is, and how much of Robert Redford's performance is all physical. This is a movie with only 51 spoken English words in it, and rather we see everything about Redford's character by his actions. Not many actors can give such a great performance without speaking, but then again, it's Robert freaking Redford. Of course he can do that. Like all the movies on this list, if you haven't seen All Is Lost, be sure to check it out. I still can't get over Sam Rockwell's performance in Moon. How is this guy not a bigger star? He acted opposite himself for a whole movie and completely nailed it. I kinda wish I had a second me walking around that I could be friends with. I just hope I'm friendly. So actually, maybe not. Thanks for watching.